Welcome to the Red Mallard Marketing Podcast. I'm Alex Bennett, Chief Content Strategist at Red Mallard. With me as always,
tight.
Thanks. With you as always is John Welches, our fearless leader. Today, John,
Founder and president. Sorry, I was going to throw my title in there.
Oh, well, you don't like fearless leader?
I have so many fears.
That's one of the things that comes with business ownership.
That's right. Release the outcomes as I'm opening my hands to the heavens, releasing the outcomes.
Well, fear is the topic of our conversation today, since we seem to be rumored to be heading into a little bit of an economically turbulent time. There's been some headwinds. There's been a few sectors of the economy here in Southern California that have been a little rickety. Construction industry has been impacted by all this rain we're having. The tech sector has been laying off a lot of people. There's been layoffs in our industry too. Those layoffs don't necessarily mean that the economy is going to do badly. There was a big jobs report that came out this morning. Nevertheless, it seems like there's a lot of conversation about, maybe we're heading a little bit for a dip. And certainly if you look at the long-term calendar, it looks like we're due for at least a recession or a dip in growth, just because that's how our system works. So, John, what have you been hearing from the business people that you've been talking to?
There is a general concern, I think, of the unknown, but that could be said of any time in any place. Since this is us in the here and now, we have the concern. Our forefathers or mothers or ancestors all had their moments of trepidation as they crossed the plains, as they, got in their first airplane, as they did anything that was unknown. I started the business in 2008, and I had no idea I was starting it in a economic recession or any kind of thing. All I knew is I'll never be able to buy a house in California because it's 2008 or 2007. My wife was a teacher at the time, and we're in an apartment, and that's where we were. And I had started the business. I had a partner, and then she exited the business. And then I was sitting there wondering, what am I going to do next? And my wife, understandably wondering the same thing, asked me, what are you going to do? And I said, I don't know. And she says, well, you were getting the sales, so why don't you go find somebody to design the thing you're selling? And I said, oh, that's an interesting idea. And then, all around us, people were having issues over the course of the next year or so. But also within that year of us starting the business and us having a great, at the time, CalSTRS grant or loan program for teachers allowed us to buy our first house because of the economic travesty that others went through. And so all I know is that we will get through whatever this is. We may come out leaner and meaner, but the opportunity is, in my opinion, is in that fearless spirit. We need to lean in to whatever this is. And the only way to do it is part of the reason why we're resurrecting our podcast, part of the reason why we're, doubling down on some marketing that we've never done before, is because we know and we've seen and we're experiencing client pullback. And while others pull back, others will push forward or push in and lean in. And I'd rather Red Mallard lean in where it knows it needs to offer value, be the expert that we need to be, that we are in the marketplace, and that is in content marketing. And so what does that do for others? What does that mean for our clients? What does that mean for people that are listening to this if they have a business or they're in a role that requires them to, think on the business type of subjects and strategies? Is celebrate your expertise, celebrate who you are. The core of content marketing, as Red Mallard sees it, is your people, your expertise, your innovation is all you have. It's what you are. It's why you are where you are now. It's what will get you to where you are going to be in the future. It is always going to be the same. There's going to be AI. There's going to be things that are going to come in and disrupt, just like 30 years ago, websites were a disruption. Some companies got on the train. Some companies didn't. Streaming was a disruption. AI is a disruption. Those are the three that come to my brain. And so you'll see big companies fail and you'll see big companies lean in. Red Mallard is not a big company, but to big companies and small companies, your story has to matter to you. And to make it matter, you have to tell it. And that's why we exist, is to help people tell their story, celebrate their expertise, celebrate their innovation, celebrate their people. Because at the end of the day, that's what you're going to have 5 years from now. You might have more of it, you might have less of it, but you're still going to have it.
What comes to my mind a little bit is in an economic downturn, when your competition is failing a little bit, and even when you're failing a little bit, the last thing you want to do is show the world that you're failing.
Mm-hmm.
Because in the B2B world especially, you don't really want to make a partnership with an outfit that could go away. You want to make partnerships with outfits that seem to be making a success for themselves. And as we've encountered a few times over the course of the last few years since we've been working together, we've seen that there are some places that talk a good game and turn out to not have any substance to them, but they nevertheless get a lot of attention. They get you to sign a contract even on the basis of their marketing alone. So it is possible to take that expertise that you have, even when you're not doing great, and continue to tell that story and foster authentic relationships. I'm not suggesting that the BS-ery is a good idea, but you can still foster relationships and find new traction with new people.
Yes.
And that's what, one of the things that content marketing is for. So I'm curious, in the context like this, where you have, a client comes to you, they say, okay, my existing clients or customers are dropping off on their orders. I don't know what to do. Is an economic downturn a ideal time to be ramping up those cold email campaigns, the lead generation? What do you think about that?
I think it's worth trying with a plan. You need foundational content to do that kind of marketing effectively, and a roadmap. We have design roadmaps like that for clients. It's like you're shooting a shotgun, but at least you're shooting it at a target. There's the sniper way, and that takes time and precision, but it requires a plan and a roadmap and accountability. So cold emails, we have a new client, we hope, that's going to a show, and they've never done a show. And I said, okay, what's your plan? Well, most people show up with a booth. They bought a booth, they spent $5,000, $10,000. They show up with a tablecloth, and they show up with a box to collect business cards and a brochure of some kind, and maybe like a tchotchke giveaway, a pen or a cup. And those are very nice things. But what are you doing to let people know you're going to the show? And what are you planning to do when you've engaged with, these 50 or 500 or 5,000 target prospects once you've gone to the show? And the client looked at me and he's like, I don't know. And I was like, well, that's good, because we know. And what you need to do is you need to have a realistic expectation of budget. If you're going to spend $5,000 to $10,000 on a booth, be prepared to spend another $5,000 to $10,000 on materials and follow-up strategy to engage those people. Because if you're going to a show and you're spending $20,000, I hope you have prospects that will pay you at least that. One prospect will pay you at least that on an annual basis going forward for 5 years. So you got an ROI. But have a plan going into whatever you're going to spend money on. And so content marketing, email cold marketing, there's organic ways to accelerate things. It takes longer. There's paid ways to accelerate things. It's riskier. And so what I recommend is, however you want to do it, or whatever you're open to, talk to a strategist like Red Mallard or an agency and ask them what they would do. And I'll tell you, go to the event, be ready to track people's information, put it into a system, have an email sequence that's ready to follow up with them so they know exactly who you are once they've met you. Because chances are they're not just there to meet you. They might be meeting your competitors there. If they're not, they're still meeting 50 or 500 or 5,000 other people at this event. So make sure you've got a sequence dialed into MailChimp or HubSpot or whoever you use to launch once you've uploaded the list of prospects or people you've met so that they know you, send them a nice meeting you email, send them a, hey, wasn't this funny that this happened at the event email? And the third email can be, hey, it was great meeting you. Here's 5 things about us. And then a few more emails and get to the point where you say like, hey, should we stay in touch? Yes or no? And if they say yes, drop them into a monthly newsletter program or set up a phone call, whatever it is. But the question that's always puzzled me and frustrated me is whenever clients engage in content marketing, they rarely, if ever, train their sales teams on how to best utilize content marketing to their advantage to foster their relationships when they're not in the room. Red Mallard has often drawn a dotted line on a whiteboard if we're in a meeting, or I'll, on the Zoom meeting, I'll go like that across the screen, ... You're in front of them or on the phone with them. These are the dots. These are the times you're with them. What's going on in between the dots? They're talking to other people. They're talking to your competitors. They're getting other quotes. They're not thinking about you. In between those dots, now draw a straight line, and that's content marketing. In between the dots goes the emails, goes the social posts, goes a print newsletter, a magazine, a delivery of cookies, whatever it is. Make your sales process a linear line and make content marketing the thing that puts your brand in the room when you're not there physically or on the phone. Because when you're not, somebody else is. And make them trust you. It takes many touch points. Some say 7 to 11 to probably 15. Who knows how many touch points now? It takes a lot to build this idea that they can trust you enough to give you their time or to give you an opportunity to quote. That's this podcast. This podcast is a touch point. We need to offer value. The podcast does that. The podcast will bring somebody an idea of trust. I just told a client, called me up this week, and she's brilliant and she's amazing. And we trust her, and she's a known person in her industry. And she asked me, what should I be doing? First thing that came to my head is like, well, we just set up a podcast studio for a client. Why don't we do that for you? And she was like, huh. And the only reason I suggested that, I wouldn't suggest that to everybody. Certain people need to do certain thought leadership exercises. This person needs to do that because they have a voice, they're fearless, they don't care in terms of outcomes, and they're relational. It's an interesting dichotomy to be fearless or not caring, but still be uber relational. And so that's the type of person that needs to start a podcast so that they can continue to leave their mark in the industry and pave the way for others. Because in that kind of world, she's the type of person that brings people along with her. She's not there to leave anybody behind.
The one thing I would add, it's very important to remember when you're creating any piece of content that the piece of content that you're working on right now, it's unlikely to be the thing that launches your empire. There isn't any way to know for sure which piece of content is going to be the one that lands that first true engagement that pays for the content marketing effort. And what can happen with something like an event where the first time you're doing an event and you experiment with sending out cold emails to everybody who was there, or maybe you send out emails just to the people who dropped their business card into your jar and you get no results, you can conclude, oh, well, that's a waste of money. I'm never doing that again. But that throws away that throws away the possibilities that remain in that effort, but it also throws away what you could potentially learn from that effort. Maybe your email struck the wrong tone. Maybe the subject lines were off. Maybe the people at the show weren't doing enough to open the doors for those conversations. There's all kinds of possibilities, and you have to try again. You have to draw the lessons. You can cut the data from an email campaign to 25,000 different ways and try to gather some information from it, and then try again the next trade show.
Yep.
The same is true for podcasting. That's why we're doing it again. You got to get it out there, and you got to have control of your brand and keep the oar in the water. And it does pay off, and sometimes you have to have a little bit of patience. Nothing happens instantaneously with marketing unless you strike, that rare anecdotal situation where you happen to go viral on something. But that can give the wrong impression that everything goes viral. Well, almost nothing goes viral.
Yeah. I'm always cautious, and sometimes I'm not cautious enough of the things that come out of nowhere. The requests, the RFPs that like just suddenly land in our lap. We've gotten, 2 out of 100 if memory serves. And the reason is because most people, when it's an out of nowhere thing, is they're probably gut checking your pricing in the marketplace. They just want another gut check on the price. They did a Google search, which means they found 10 others of you. You're not special, or they're just fishing. They're a competitor fishing for pricing potentially. And so what is often something you should be doing is the thing you don't like doing. I was just texting with a client, and it's a regional bank that we work with. And that guy said, I hate email marketing. And I was like, many people do. But guess what? It works. I always use this in meetings. If you're, most people in Southern California that I know are Costco members or Sam's Club or some kind of thing. And if you are, you get emails from them. And most likely, if you're a paying member of anything, Disneyland, wherever, you don't unsubscribe from their emails because FOMO.
Mm-hmm.
And that means fear of missing out. You're unlikely to unsubscribe from any brand that you value, who you view as the expert. You may not read every email, but every email that comes in is a touch point. And it's very inexpensive to put together a decent email. Sign up for ours because we're relaunching that also. But that's the thing. It's like it's the things you don't like doing are probably some of the things you should be doing. And if you don't like it enough, delegate it to somebody who will do it for you.
And some of the touch points, one of the things that we often talk about with our clients that send a lot of emails when they say, well, we're getting really low open rates, we're getting low click-through rates. Yeah, that's how it works. Open rates in the 15, 20% is doing pretty well. Click-through rates of 5%, you're killing it.
Of the ones that opened it.
Yeah. The rest of the time, your prospect or your customer has seen your name in their inbox, and they've had a brand impression, and that's inherently valuable. It's why Coca-Cola puts its label on everything everywhere, or at least they used to. But it used to be everywhere you went, it was just Coke advertising everywhere. Well, it's because they wanted their name to be in your head. That's part of what this is about. It's about paving the way. And like you said, it's paving the way for those conversations that ultimately have to happen. The salespeople have to reach out and use the open door that the content marketing has created for you.
They're all selling sugar.
So tasty.
They're all selling something. Everybody's in sales. So the question is do you want to continue to sell when things like an economic downturn or recession, an election year, there's going to be disruptions along the way. There's no avoiding it. And what's always been a challenge for me is articulating that vision. And we've been having those recent talks, here at Red Mallard of like, what do we want this business to be? And we're still trying to figure that out. But if you know what you want your business to be exactly, you're definitely one step ahead. But if you're not communicating what that vision is, then maybe it's not the true vision.
Boom.
Thank you, Alex. This has been the Red Mallard Marketing Podcast. I'm John Welches. Alex Bennett.
Signing off.
Until next time.